I live in London. That doesn't make me special. There are millions of people that live here, so it's just one of many. But one thing about London is that driving can be quite tough, and not just here, but in Manchester, Birmingham, and other cities around the country. There's loads of traffic, there's hard to park, there's loads of potholes, etc, etc, etc. So with that in mind, what are some of the best city cars you can buy that have depreciated down to a reasonable price of under £20,000? It's actually pretty expensive for a city car, but we're going to get onto cheaper ones in the future. And the only way we're going to make those cheaper videos is if you hit the like button. 1,000 likes and I'll make a video of the same topic but under £10,000 instead, and we'll go lower from there. If you're new here, do subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first car we're going to talk about really lacks in the insane performance part of this title. I can definitely appreciate that, but it's also the most specifically city-focused car on the list, the smart ForFour Brabus exclusive edition, which comes with a minuscule 0.9 litre turbocharged inline-3 that makes 107 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in a pretty slow time of 10.2 seconds. But that slow 0 to 60 is mostly because it's not a car that does 0 to 60 often. This car is genuinely meant to be used in city circumstances almost exclusively. Look at any review and they'll tell you the road holding on motorways or long winding B roads isn't very good. But the 0 to 30, the nippiness, and the practicality of a city life, it ticks all the right boxes. But I'll be real with you, the key reason why this is on the list is Brabus's involvement. As one of the most well-known Mercedes tuning houses in the world, Brabus have a rich history of modifying smart cars, with the older Roadster in particular being one of my favourites. And when you look at the more aggressive exterior and the more interesting interior on these versus the standard car, plus the raspier sound you get out of the twin exhaust, it certainly gives you the feeling of being in something way more premium than a rebodied Renault Twingo, which is what it was developed alongside. You'll find it's listed anywhere from around the £14,000 mark, and £20,000 will get you into one with insanely low mileage from 2017. It's worth noting that the older generation wasn't known for its reliability, but luckily as city cars these typically don't have too much mileage. Instead it's suspension issues from our poor road quality and dinks from parking scrapes to look out for on these. Despite being a VW Polo owner, I will self-confess as actively not being a huge fan of the Up. I don't think it's a particularly good looking VW, and it's a little bit too squished for my liking. But all that changes when you put an Up GTI in front of me, as it's a properly cool little city car with a bit more flexibility than the Smart we just looked at. It comes with a 1 litre turbocharged inline-3 engine which makes 113 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 8.5 seconds. Again, not particularly rapid, but perfectly serviceable from a city car perspective, and though it's slightly bigger than the Smart, overall it's still incredibly small compared to average cars, meaning it'll fit into more parking spaces, which is a proper premium here in London for sure. I love the subtle modifications to the exterior in true GTI fashion, like the alloys, the front and rear bumpers, and the GTI badging, but it's the interior that really gets me going, with the classic tartan seats, the red details on the dashboard, and all the rest. For me, given this car's size, power, and formula, it's as close as VW have made to the hallowed original Golf GTI this century. It has insanely positive reviews both from owners and reviewers, both for city life and beyond, but people have wanted a bit more power out of them, so there's a pretty good set of modifications available for them if you're that way inclined. They start at around £14,000, with £20,000 getting you a 2022 model with around 5k on it, meaning prices have held pretty well. Reliability is really positive on these, and generally people have a lot of good things to say about them, which is always a bonus. A good friend of mine, in fact the guy that lent me the Suzuki Swift for a video a long time ago, recently moved to London, and what car did he get himself for city life? An Abarth 595. The only way he could have done better with the Abarth badge would have been to go for a 695, which has that 1.4 litre turbocharged inline-4 which makes 180 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, which is not bad at all for a city car. Now the 595 is the typical car you'd go for if you just wanted some performance out of your city Abarth, but the 695s add a bit of spice into the mix, given they're typically the special edition 595s. You can get yourself a 70th anniversary, Rivali, Yamaha, Biposto, Maserati, Tributo Ferrari, and a few other 695 models, but for your £20,000 it will only be a Rivali or Yamaha that you'll get into, starting at around the £14,000 mark, with 20k getting you a Rivali from 2018 with around 20,000 miles on the clock. The Rivali is a collaboration between Abarth and famous boating company Riva, who make some of the most sought after speedboats in the world, hence the interior is made to give a nod to its boating heritage, plus the two-tone exterior. The Yamaha version is of course a collab between the motorcycle brand known to have been Valentino Rossi's home for a long time, so again a bit of Italian heritage, and you get a nice nice Akrapovic exhaust to enhance the sound on these examples, and a healthy use of carbon fibre throughout. Plus, the engines are actually pretty good on reliability too, which you might not have expected from a Fiat. So a quick reminder, we're doing under £20,000 in this video. If you want to see the video again under 10,000 instead, hit the like, 1,000 likes, I'll make that video. And the car at number 1 on this list, I'm genuinely looking at as a potential daily driver in future. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on whether that should be a daily driver for me. Onto a slightly larger car now, but still a great car for the city. It's the mini hatch John Cooper Works, specifically the 3rd generation or F56 example, which is a B48 engine used in a bunch of BMWs, which is a 2-litre inline-4 turbocharged engine that makes 227 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds. Despite that aggressive engine, one thing that's nice about these is fuel efficiency, given they'll do more than 40 miles per gallon combined, and it performs very well. Some reviewers have complained that it's not quite as engaging as the Fiesta ST, but the Mini for me feels like the more premium car, especially on the interior, which retains that standard bubbly mini circular dashboard, but somehow also looks sportier. It also had a few questions raised around it not being as agile as its previous generations, but instead the focus was on giving you a premium feel with a lot of power to outdrag most of its competitors. It also was more comfortable than previous generations, with the adaptive dampers offering a better ride that would be well worth optioning if you're driving in the city, especially with our speed bumps and potholes to navigate. It's therefore one of the more flexible cars on the list, not as small as the first 3 cars we spoke about, but small enough and big enough to be used as a weekend car on trips away from the city, as it will handle motorways, B roads and all the rest easily. £13,000 the minimum you'll need to spend to get into one of these, and £20,000 will get you a 2016 model with 30k on it. And that B48 isn't yet known to suffer the crank bearing and oil solenoid issues faced by early Cooper and Cooper S models, which is always a bonus. I think the Audi S1 is a highly underrated car, and I would genuinely have one as my daily. Yes, it's not got true all-wheel drive, given the Haldex mostly runs it in front-wheel drive and less to the rear is needed for traction, and yes, it's maybe a very specific use case as a fast city car, but honestly I think it's pretty cool, particularly in 3-door spec where it just looks so aggressive. It is Audi's smallest S model car and the performance version of the A1, and in its class of small city cars, it's hard to find anything that has as much tech thrown into it, and even harder to find anything with any kind of all-wheel drive that isn't a mini 4x4 like the Jimny. What's crazy is that it was a similar price to cars like the Golf GTI and Focus ST, but the S1 somehow feels more special as it's rarer and the formula is so much more unique in comparison. Plus, it has a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 that makes 227 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. It comes as a 3-door or 5-door Sportback, and that 5-door has a bit more headroom in the rear if you plan on driving more people, though sadly it's only a 4-seater, even though the A1 came as a 5-seater. I am a big fan of the looks both outside and in. It follows the standard formula for S Audis, and the only way I think they could have made it cooler would have been to have made a model with the RS1 badge instead. With that not being the case, the S1 is roguely one of my picks for being a future classic, kinda like the old Audi 50. You'll need to spend around £13,000 to get into one of these, and £20,000 will get you a 2017 model around 26,000 miles on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new here, and massive thanks to the patrons for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. And if you want to watch a video on some cheap and fast hot hatchbacks that are pretty similar to cars in this video, then click up here and subscribe down here.